You watch people move through rooms, a commuter scrolling through a phone on the train, a student chewing a pen in a quiet library, an older neighbor staring out a window. On the surface, these are ordinary moments. Underneath them is a current running through American life, a widespread feeling of not being seen or understood. This film, Alone Together, The Loneliness Crisis in America, guides you through what loneliness is, who it touches, why it matters, and how small, steady choices can begin to change it. You recognize the words before the images appear. The title is an invitation to look, to listen, and to reframe how you think about connection. Loneliness is not the same as being alone. You can sit in a crowded room and still feel separate from the people around you. Loneliness is the mismatch between the social contact you want and the contact you have. It's an ache that says, I need to be understood, known, or cared for, and the world isn't meeting that need in a way that feels real and steady. This isn't a minor complaint. About 1 in 5 adults in the United States report feeling lonely a lot on any given day. Other measures suggest close to 40% of people experience moderate to severe loneliness at times. Those numbers are not the whole story. They're signposts pointing to millions of quiet, private experiences. Loneliness does not look the same in every life. Some communities report higher rates than others. For instance, LGBTQ+ adults are more likely to say they feel isolated or lack emotional support. The reasons are complex: stigma, family rejection, workplace discrimination, and the challenge of finding safe places to be open. When a group faces pressure to hide parts of themselves, emotional distance grows. You might notice loneliness in small, everyday ways. People who feel disconnected often describe emptier commutes, less pleasure in hobbies, distracted conversations, and workdays that stretch without respite. Over half of Americans report feeling emotionally disconnected, at least sometimes. Those feelings don't stay in the personal sphere. They bleed into productivity, relationships, and how people experience the city, the classroom, the office. Some groups report higher loneliness more consistently. LGBTQ+ people living alone, older adults who've lost partners or friends, and younger adults navigating a digital-first social world. But these are not silos. Loneliness moves across lines of age, income, and background. A student may feel as adrift as a retiree. A mother with 3 kids may feel as unseen as a single man in a studio apartment. The common thread is the need for meaningful emotional connection. People describe loneliness in plain human terms. It feels like shouting into a void, someone might say. Another will talk about a steady low hum of sadness that doesn't make sense in any single moment, but is always there. These personal accounts remind you that statistics are shorthand for real interior lives, for mornings that begin without warmth and phone calls that never arrive. Loneliness can be invisible. You can sit across from a partner at a dinner table and still feel separate. You can log onto a popular social app and feel hollow afterward. Numbers tell you scale, but they don't capture the quality of emotional distance. The sense of not being able to open up, of practicing smiles that don't land. Those moments are where loneliness lives. Technology promised to bring people together. For many, it did. But social media and endless messaging can also replace face-to-face interaction and intensify the sense of being judged or left out. You see polished lives on a screen and start measuring your own messy days against them. Algorithms nudge you toward content that keeps your attention, not necessarily what builds trust. As a result, screen time can substitute for real, vulnerability-building conversations. The pandemic magnified what was already happening. Lockdowns pulled people apart physically and, in many cases, emotionally. Even as places reopened, patterns lingered. People discovered how much of their social world depended on casual, incidental contact. The colleague who says hello in the hallway, the neighbor you see at the mailbox, and realized those contacts had been more important than they thought. Work hours stretch longer. Financial stress narrows focus. When every spare hour is about earning and maintaining security, time for deep friendships shrinks. Economic pressure doesn't only bite at wallets, it tightens the schedule and leaves less room for the small, unplanned interactions that create trust. You can be surrounded by coworkers and still have no one who knows how your week really went. More Americans live alone today than in past decades. Families spread across regions, and neighborhood ties loosen with mobility and time pressures. These structural shifts change the landscape of available support. Where communities used to provide built-in connection, churches, local clubs, block parties, many people now find themselves deciding daily how to create or seek that connection in new ways. Admitting loneliness can feel risky. Vulnerability is still often framed as weakness, so people hide their feelings. That silence deepens the problem. If no one talks about being lonely, it looks like those feelings are rare or shameful. When you don't name the problem, you can't set about fixing it. Older adults face a particular cluster of risks: partner loss, decreasing mobility, health issues, and shrinking social circles. All increase the chance of persistent loneliness. Social networks narrow naturally with age, and new ways of connecting like group exercise or community centers aren't always accessible. Loneliness in later life can be quiet but lethal, shaping health and day-to-day joy. At the same time, younger generations report alarmingly high levels of persistent loneliness. For many young people, social life is mediated through screens and filtered images, which can undercut confidence and authentic connection. The pressure to perform identity and popularity, combined with economic uncertainty and shifting family structures, creates a landscape where young people feel simultaneously visible and profoundly alone. Loneliness is linked to mental health concerns like depression and anxiety. Feeling chronic emotional isolation changes how you process stress, how you sleep, and how you imagine your future. When your support feels unreliable, you may internalize blame or withdraw further, which creates a loop that's hard to break on your own. The consequences of loneliness reach beyond mood. Studies suggest that chronic loneliness increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, raises inflammation, and is associated with higher mortality. One meta-analysis likened the health risk of severe social isolation to smoking multiple cigarettes a day. This doesn't mean loneliness is a simple physical cause, but it does mean social connection matters for bodies as well as hearts. Loneliness disrupts sleep, attention, and cognitive performance. You may notice a friend who is more forgetful, more impatient, or less motivated. These are often subtle changes, easy to attribute to stress, but over time they compound and reshape how a person moves through life. On a larger scale, widespread loneliness erodes trust in neighbors, institutions, and social systems. Communities where people feel disconnected are less likely to cooperate, volunteer, or engage in civic life. The result is a feedback loop. Loneliness undermines social structures that could otherwise support connection. Loneliness is not contained within one person. It ripples across families and workplaces, changing dynamics and making people less emotionally available to one another. One person's withdrawal can make others feel isolated, and that can cascade through relationships and communities. Connection often begins with small, concrete actions. Reach out and ask specific questions. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Invite a neighbor for coffee, text a colleague about lunch, or call someone who might be quieting down. Consistency matters more than grand gestures. A weekly check-in, a shared walk, or a short, honest conversation builds trust over time. Find ways to belong that center shared purpose. Volunteering, joining a class, or contributing to a community project creates natural occasions for repeated interactions. Purposeful action gives context to new relationships. It's easier to talk about a shared task than to force intimacy out of nowhere. Workplaces and schools can intentionally design for connection. Regular team check-ins, shared breaks, mentorship programs, and quiet spaces for informal conversation help. In classrooms, teachers who build routines for peer collaboration create patterns where students can practice being seen and heard. You don't have to change institutions overnight. Small policy shifts and cultural nudges can have big effects. Digital tools aren't inherently bad. Video calls, small group chats, and online communities centered on interest and care can maintain relationships across distance. The key is intentionality. Use technology to supplement real-world contact, not to replace it. Prioritize synchronous, face-centered interactions over passive scrolling and endless comparison. Culture matters. When vulnerability is encouraged rather than shamed, people are likelier to reach out. Communities that normalize asking for help and sharing struggles build safety. That kind of shift takes time, but it starts with everyday choices. Responding with curiosity instead of judgment, listening more than solving, and modeling openness. Public health leaders recognize social connection as a social determinant of health. Policies that fund community centers, support affordable public transportation, and encourage workplaces to consider employee social well-being can function like scaffolding for connection. These measures don't solve everything, but they reduce barriers and create opportunities where everyday relationships can form. You'll find stories of quiet reconnection that aren't dramatic but are life-changing. A neighbor who starts a weekly card game, a teacher who holds after-school help, a coworker who begins bringing lunch for a small group. These small rituals rebuild trust. Over months and years, they reshape how people feel seen. If you sit with these facts and stories, you might feel a mixture of heaviness and possibility. The loneliness crisis is widespread, but it's not fixed. Awareness matters. When you see loneliness as a social problem, not a personal failing, you open space for action. You can change who enters your day and how you show up for others. Here are practical steps you can take. Reach out to someone with a specific invitation. Offer time rather than advice. Create small recurring contact points, like a dinner or a call. Practice asking how someone is and waiting for an answer. And when someone trusts you with their loneliness, stay with the feeling and listen. If you're feeling overwhelmed, seek professional support. Counseling and community programs help. Taking care of your own social health is not optional. It's part of staying human. You are part of a network, whether you notice it or not. Every small gesture, a text, a hand on a shoulder, a question asked earnestly, matters. These are not grand acts, but they are the stitches that hold neighborhoods, workplaces, and families together. Connection accumulates. For those who want to explore more, the research and resources that informed this film include work on the psychology and health impacts of loneliness, public health reviews, and surveys that map who feels most at risk. If you want to learn more, check the references. If you're moved to act, pick one of the small steps described here and try it this week. You've watched a portrait of a quiet crisis, people physically present who aren't always emotionally present with each other. That gap matters, for individuals and for the social fabric. But you've also seen how simple habits of attention and care can start to close it. Be the person who asks twice if someone is okay. Be the person who turns toward a neighbor or a coworker instead of away. It doesn't take a movement to make a difference. It takes a series of tiny decisions repeated over time. In that repetition, connection grows. If this film resonated, consider making one small change. Call someone you haven't spoken to in a while, ask them to meet for coffee, or volunteer for a local program. These gestures are modest, but they ripple. Loneliness is a shared problem, and shared problems need shared solutions. The next step for you, for the people you care about, and for your community, begins with a simple hello. For those curious to explore these ideas further, you can find related recordings in our playlist or on this channel. Subscribing allows you to continue following this educational journey, and your comments or likes help guide future content. Thank you for learning with us today, and we look forward to sharing more insights in the next video.